Good morning. This is Erica Dingman from the Lower Manhattan Project. This morning we're speaking with Dr. Tom O'Donnell. Dr. Tom O'Donnell is a visiting professor at the Center of the Study of Development at Central University of Venezuela and at the New School. Tom is a nuclear physicist who studies the global political economy of energy, especially petroleum. Good morning, Tom.
Good morning, Erica. How are you?
I'm very well. How are you this morning?
I'm fine.
Good, good.
Beautiful here in Caracas.
Lovely. We have a few questions to address today. The first is the global economy is undergoing a radical shift. Governments have been positioned to take controlling interests in numerous firms, and the regulation of financial markets is now the focus. Do you foresee this having long-term effect on energy and the environment?
Well, not really, because the issue is really the main issue is what are the energy and environmental policies of the governments, and the energy and environmental issues of the governments are not undergoing significant change at this point. Probably amongst the developed countries of the OECD, it's the European Union has always had the most, you might say, the most progressive policies on energy and environment to really transform the whole Europe. They've tried for some years to make significant transformations in the European Union in accord with global warming and so forth. But they've had significant problems in doing this, basically because of the bottom line from the economic point of view, I think, is how expensive alternative energy remains as compared to petroleum and as compared to things like coal or natural gas. And it's very difficult for governments to overcome this because of competition with other countries. In and of themselves, they could just decide to bite the bullet and do it, but the various countries are in competition, and their industrial sectors and service sectors are in competition with one another, and the price of energy enters into all their commodities, and it's an important competitive issue. And despite some very good plans and very good intentions of the EU, say over the last 10 years, they've had a very difficult time actually accomplishing their goals on a whole range of things. It's difficult to see how the present crisis significantly changes this, because if anything, the price of energy has gotten significantly cheaper of carbon-based energy, hydrocarbons. So it makes it's a time when governments, especially when they control companies, a number of large companies and financial houses now, it's a time when they can spend significant amounts of money, and probably somewhat easier than in the past, and change companies' policies, affect companies' policies somewhat easier than in the past in an environmentally friendly way. However, from the competitive angle, they're up against more problems than before because the prices are so much lower.
So Tom, then, if you could do one thing
Yeah.
right now to help deal with the uncertain future with respect to energy, the environment, and the economy, what would it be?
Yeah. One thing now, well, I think one of the, just like in the Bush administration, the Clinton and Bush administrations and Reagan and so forth before, the problem in the United States is the United States is the main per capita consumer of energy, and very dirty energy. We consume something like twice as many gallons of gasoline per capita, us and the Canadians, twice as many gallons of gasoline per capita as the rest of the industrialized world. So this is nothing, that's a huge cut that could be made in the United States. And it has nothing to do with introducing new technology, nothing to do with finding alternative energy, simply living the way the average developed European country lives. We'd have to accept the miserable style of life they have, say, in Germany or Belgium or France, but we would consume half as much, and transportation contributes roughly half the global warming gas. And it's 95% dependent, all transportation in the world is 95% dependent on petroleum. So if something could be done about this, it's not a matter of new technology, it's not a matter of anything exotic. Simply if we live the way these countries live, it would be a contribution to halting to fighting global warming far exceeding anything any other country has done.
So it's changing the behavior.
And, yeah, I mean, just that's sort of the first cut. I mean, I'm not arguing against. It's very important, the development of new technologies, new ways of being, but simply adapting the sort of infrastructural, living in infrastructure and transportation way that the older countries of the European old Europe live would be a tremendously greater contribution to cutting greenhouse gases here and for energy efficiency than any other new technology that anyone's considering.
It's a great answer. Yeah. Now, in regard to energy and the environment, are there problems that governments do not yet recognize, but which could become economic burdens in the future? What do you think?
There's one very significant one. Let me back up. I think, in the realm of everything that's being discussed, whether we look at the programs of the European Union over the last 10 years, and they've really thought this through quite well, and the United States, which has not thought it through hardly at all. If we separate the production of energy into two main camps, one is transportation, the other being production of electricity. In the production of electricity, all the new technologies or methods that are normally discussed, such as wind, using more wind power, or burning alternative fuels, renewable fuels. If you use all those things, solar, insofar as solar is available today, certain types of solar, you're pushing something like 20% of the total electricity production going to some kind of alternative energy. To go beyond this is a very significant change. Everything being discussed is sort of within that window. And you look at the goals of the European Union, they're around 20%, depending on the country. Now, if you look at transportation, that's a much more difficult problem because cars depend on liquid fuel. And no matter what the source of the fuel, they all want to turn it into liquid that's very much like gasoline. Simply because the energy content of gasoline, this octane, is so much higher than any other liquid. So they want to convert everything into this liquid to put it in your car so one tank can take you 300 miles. It's very difficult to find any other technology yet that can compete with that can put that much energy in such a small space that's also liquid and can be used. I mean, you can put nuclear fuel, but that doesn't work so well. Or you can put coal, but that would take like a whole wagon behind your car, a whole trailer, right? And it'd be a mess. So you have to think in these practical terms. Now, so to me, and the transportation side, it's a major development of metros, of subways, and fast trains. And not just this city, that city, where it makes, it makes economic sense here and there. But no, I mean a major plan, such as the plan that was implemented under the Eisenhower administration when they decided that the old infrastructure simply did not work. They had modern cars that nobody could drive at the speed they're capable of. And so they built the interstate system. And Robert Moses, in a rather revolutionary way that might not have been very good for the people anyone who was in his way when he decided to build his roads, but just plowed through these roads everywhere. But something like that kind of revolutionary sweep is needed in the transformation of like the North American cities. There should be a plan to make 80-something% of North American cities over a couple 100,000 people, 100 to 200,000 people have metros and light rail. If there's not a plan like this, you're not really significantly doing something about this use of carbon-based fuels. That would be a serious plan. The European Union talked about this, but they have not been able to do it despite spending hundreds of billions of euros because up till now the price of gas has been too cheap and they have to compete with the Americans and the Chinese in cheap commodities. And the last thing, I don't want to go on too long, what governments don't realize is it's not just a matter of energy and environment. In transportation, there's the crisis of congestion that's undermining the logic of what was a modern system 50 years or 60 years ago when Eisenhower built it. It doesn't work anymore It cannot be expanded in most major cities. You can't build new roads. We need a transportation system that doesn't match that transportation system match the industrial revolution, the automation revolution. We need one that matches the present revolution, information revolution, and there is not one here. And that would be very significant transformation to mass transit. So it's not just for energy and the environment. To be competitive is to have an economic, to have an transportation infrastructure. So that's another crisis that contributes in this direction that I don't think governments see that connection.
Well, Tom, thank you very much. Very insightful.